What's up, team? Time for that staff video update. Got my list here. First, HR department really needs your form fire link. And the truth is, it's not really the HR department. We need that. Your teammates need that. We need to do that for each other. So for those of you that are on staff, make sure that you get that in and get it in by the deadline. That's going to give us the maximum amount of time to work through all of the scenarios and options or whatever that we need to make sure that we can serve you the best that we can. So if you need to hit pause on that video and put a to-do in your calendar or set out a section in your calendar for you to get that done soon, go ahead and do that right now. All right, so that's great, number one. Number two, if you heard from me last week about the potential Blade news interview. Turns out they didn't run the article. And then at the same time, we heard the heartbreaking news about NewSpring. And for those of you that don't know, if you're in your campus meetings, you can talk about it there. But they had a volunteer who basically has impacted negatively 14 different families on NewSpring's property. So first thing is pray for the families that have been impacted. The second thing is pray for the church. And I think the third thing is just to be reminded that some of the policies that we've installed, the interviews, the child safety training, some of that stuff, it may seem inconvenient at times for some of the dream teamers that we're trying to bring on, but really our heart and our vision is to protect every kid and every family that comes. And people who aren't comfortable with that, people who get a little insecure because they feel like we're not trusting them, they either need to get the vision to get in line or they probably need to get out and or their potential risk, for us. They're going to, not saying that they are the risk, but they're not going to value some of the policies that we have in place because they don't understand the why. And so we're going to be continuing to talk about that and continue to pray that God would protect us from that kind of situation, news, the whole thing. So if you want, here's what I would ask, especially for those of you that are meeting as teams. I know I've already said pause once. Why don't you pause again and just take a second and have someone pray for the families that have been impacted, pray for NewSpring, and pray for our church, especially as we head into Christmas season. All right. Number three, next weekend, we've got staff meeting. And so we're going to be have a hot chocolate bar. We got some things that we want to share with you about the Christmas service that are coming up that we're excited about. So just make sure that you join us for that. Wanted to give you a heads up for that. And where are we? Okay. And so here, I just spent a little time at NorthPoint with some of the lead pastors, and I want to share with you one segment, and there'll be more. You'll hear me talk about this again, but one segment that was really informative for me. And when you think about, I know some of you may not think about this, may not even care about this in some level. Not that you don't care about structure and all of that stuff, but when you hear about organizational structure, you hear about like the triangle, and you got the leadership on top, and it trickles down, vision trickles down, communication cascades down, and it may not look like a triangle. It may look more like a name, and then it's team members here, and in some ways, this starts to branch out into a triangle as well. So that's kind of how org charts look, but it resembles that of a triangle, okay? It's like the leaders at the top, you hear the statement, it's lonely at the top, and I think this just helps people, for whatever reason, understand the size, place, location in an organization. C-suite, CEO, leaders, leadership team, you got your management team, you got your frontline team, and then you got your customers. Well, one of the sessions that we had while we were there was with a former CEO of Home Depot who unexpectedly was asked to take over, and he has some funny stories to go with that. And one of the things that he used to help give him direction when he was trying to figure out how is he going to inspire the employees and all that stuff was to go back and actually read the book of The Founder, Built from Scratch. And in that book, he was reminded of this concept that the founder really built. And now, if you've done any leadership research or whatever, you know that this is like the servant leadership model. And so you invert the triangle, you put the leader at the bottom of the organization. And so I know we've seen this before. Jesus taught this, that the leader should be the servant of all. So you got the senior leadership, senior leader, you got the management team, you got the team. I added dream team here because they're actually, we should look at them as staff. And so think about this. If you want to make a bigger impact on your campus, if you want to see your campus grow your staff, grow the vision, the number of people that are caring for guests and investing in their life. That is a very real growth and care strategy for our campuses. But we'll save the rest of that for another day. That's why Dream Team is so important. The Dream Team ultimately are the frontline employees that are serving our guests. Here was the founder of Home Depot's belief, is that your frontline employees, the checkout aisle, the people at Home Depot, were going to be the primary growth engine for reaching as many customers as possible. Well, in order to serve those frontline employees, we would call them Dream Team, you need a team of people that can lead, inspire, manage, equip, train, empower that group of people. And in order to do that, they needed a management team and a leadership team that knew how to recruit and train and develop leaders, of teams that were ready to serve the customer. They understood that they weren't in the hardware store business. They were in the business of helping people live out their dreams at home, making their homes a place, their house feel like a home, that kind of stuff. And so when you clarify all of that, suddenly it brings into perspective who is really the most important person in your organization. And I think for all of us, the guest is most important. Here was the other thing that he said that was really, it caused me to go, huh. He said, this is also a picture of why the weight of the organization is oftentimes felt at a senior leader position. It's not that it's not complicated and difficult for some of these other teams, but really, if a leader is going to step in and lead their organization well, they feel the weight of all of that. They feel connected to all of that, even though they cannot control all of it. And so, man, that just resonated with me. And for those of you that are leaders, you feel some of that weight too. So that was an aha for me. Whereas when you have the other mindset, we say it's lonely at the top, and we feel like the weight is nobody gets us, nobody understands us. That may be true, but that could be true of any level of the organization. The weight is really in serving and helping set the people above you up for success. Here's the other thing that I thought of as I was thinking about that. This is why communication is so important. When you have the other mindset, you assume that if you communicate it once or twice, it cascades down and is going to get to everybody else. And that's just not true. I mean, we know this a little bit experientially, but you can't assume that just because you've communicated it, it's going to cascade down. No, instead, we have to intentionally and continually be pushing communication up. That's why there's oftentimes gaps in communication, is because, and I'll take some ownership for some of this stuff. It's like you assume that everybody's heard it once. You've assumed that everybody's heard it before. You assume that they've heard you say it and that it all clicked. And it's like, ta-da! But that's just not the case. My job, our job as staff members and as leaders is to continue to communicate to the teams that are on the front lines. It's to continue, even more importantly, to communicate the vision of our church, what it is that we're doing this weekend, and why what they are doing is so important. So, as I think about this, it's like this is going to help us over the next couple of weeks get focused on the two things that I think are really most important. The three things that are really most important. Because when it comes to organizational success, most organizational structure people say you need three things in order to be successful, practically from an organizational standpoint. Cash, which God has been pouring out in more generosity over the past couple of months through people giving with heart than we've seen since I've been lead pastor. And so we have some resources. We have stability there. Yay, God. Leaders, cash, you need leaders, which I see we have in all of you and in our dream team. And you need scalable structures, which I think we've installed in Growth Track and in groups, and we've got consistent language, and we've got weekend, and we've got all of those things. And we're leveraging social media, so they're not perfect. We've got room to grow, but we've got the three things that we need, and God has put all of them in place right at peak season time, right now. Heading into Christmas, heading into January, between now and Easter, this is game time. And we don't have to go out and find a bunch of new things really To add to this, we've just got to run the plays that we have in front of us really well. And so here's our play headed now to Christmas. We want this Christmas to be the biggest Christmas ever. Not for our numbers, but to see as many people who casually attend or do not attend or haven't been here in a while come back to Cedar Creek. And we want to use the weekend service to encourage them to come back and join us in January. That's our focus. That's our key target. Why? Because we want to invite everybody to experience the life-changing journey with Jesus. We want them to know God. We want them to find freedom. We want them to discover their purpose. We want them to make a difference, right? Why do we want them to do that? Because when they step into that, they will experience this idea. They will begin to experience for themselves how much they matter to God and to our community, which is so valuable. So what we're doing is not just eternally significant, it's practically significant for us today. So how are we going to be successful? Number one, we got to pray. We got to believe that this is God's work more than it's our work, that fundamentally He's the one carrying all of the weight for the future of our church, for Christmas. He cares about it infinitely more than we do. And when our heart begins to connect with His heart, suddenly we begin to let go of some of the fears and some of the worries and some of the comparisons or some of the thinking about who's not here, instead of preparing ourselves for who will come and be getting our people focused on that, right? So we got to pray. And I want you to take some time to do that today. At the end of the video, during your meeting, pray for our service, pray for unchurched people, pray for our community, pray for our staff, all of the same stuff. Pray for your top 5. That's number 1. Number 2 is we have to be prepared. What does that mean to be prepared? You got to have the dream team prepared. They're our greatest asset. We got to be taking piles of invite cards into the huddles with us. My little pile is back here. We got to take them into the huddles with us and be prepared to hand out invite cards. We got to prepare our people for that. We've got to prepare our space for that. We got to make sure that we're clean. We're the cleanest that we've ever been. Cleaning carpets, cleaning seats, cleaning the building, all of that stuff. And so we got to pray. We got to prepare, make sure that we are prepared to handle. That means we got to have our dream team staff. That means we got to invite people to join us. Say things like, you are needed. We need the dream team to know that they are a key part in having us prepared for Christmas and for January. And we got to be pumped up about that, right? So pray, be prepared, and pump invites, okay? It's like personal invites. We got to make sure that we are taking invites with us wherever we go and saying, man, we don't want you to miss this Christmas service. I think if together we continue to do that as a staff team, as we continue to trust God first, and as we are faithful and prepare with the things that He's given us for the people that He's going to send, and as we cast vision around inviting and getting people ready, ready to engage with Christmas, I need you guys talking about it this weekend. So here's what I want you to do. Hit pause. Talk about what are some ways that we can maximize our impact with that starting this weekend and over the next couple of weeks into Easter. And it's not just how many people can we invite, it's how many people can we infect with the vision. And I use that word on purpose like it's a virus. How many people can we infect with the vision to reach people, to help every person in Northwest Ohio hear the message of Christmas, that they matter to God, that God made room for you. Will you make room for Him? All right, there you go. There's your video update. Love you guys. We got a lot to celebrate. Generosity in the offering. We saw 37 baptisms this past weekend. Last weekend, we saw 87 completions of Growth Track. And so people are finishing and moving forward and getting engaged, and that's exciting. So keep up the great work. Love you guys.